What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gojo with Mike Golick Jr. That is me. With me, as always, super producer Brandon Newman. Brandon, what's going on?
Nothing much, Mike. Feeling fine as wine this Monday morning. How are you?
I'm feeling great. This weekend was a deeply refreshing sports weekend. Just because content weekend overall, because I think what I figured out about this weekend and was reminded of, which was conference championship weekend in college basketball, is like the opening weekend of March Madness light. Like, obviously, lots on the line with the conference championship games. There's certainly stakes in conference tournaments, but as a member of the Independent Anarchy crew over at Notre Dame, you're only going to sell me so much in the value of that. The NCAA tournament is the ultimate prize. And so that first weekend of March Madness games in the tournament, which is a holy holiday, one of the best sports watching weekends of the year, this is a nice tune-up of it, where you've got so many things happening all at once, everything everywhere all at once, if you will, on Oscar night.
Hey, I like that. I hear you, Mike, but I got caught up when I had time to I was with my dad all weekend, so it was big throw the game on energy, just not to actually even watch it. So a lot of college basketball was on in the background, but I found myself wanting to watch to help me set the brackets. And then I remember how this thing works. And I was like, this isn't going to help me make a better bracket. Like, finding out how well Duke plays in the ACC championship isn't going to help me set my bracket. So I end up just watching Kent State play in the MAC championship because I was like, I just need to see some basketball be played.
And that was it. There was plenty of it to have happen. And then we had Selection Sunday last night. We have a great show for you guys today. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review Gojo. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out on the DraftKings YouTube channel as well under the Gojo with Mike Golick Jr. tab. Plenty of news out of the NFL. The number one pick in the draft got traded at the end of last week. One of the top cornerbacks in the NFL got traded yesterday, and we've still got some things that we're wondering about Aaron Rodgers, in addition to the Oscars last night that were going on, some other moves that were made, and one particular case about workman's comp that needs to be talked about on this show. But Brandon, no better place to start than with March Madness. We had Selection Sunday, and the results were as follows. On the men's side of the tournament, the 4-1 seeds ended up being exactly who we'd expected, the teams that had all split time at number one over the course of the season for the most part. Houston, Kansas, Purdue, and Alabama, who was the number one overall seed in the NCAA tournament, wind up as your top four seeds in the tournament. Worth noting that two of those 4-1 seeds lost in their conference tournament. Kansas got their doors blown off by Texas in the Big 12 championship game. We know there was no Bill Self in that one, recovering from a medical procedure. He will be back with the team for the NCAA tournament. And then Houston also ended up losing in their conference championship game. They end up without Marcus Sasser, who's their top scorer, who went down with a groin injury in that game Saturday. All accounts say that I think he's probable for the NCAA tournament, but you and I have both pulled muscles, pulled groins. That's a difficult one to come back from and do any sort of planting, cutting, and moving. So automatically some things to be concerned about with Houston there. But just overall, Brandon, watching the tournament this weekend, these are the four names that have been consistently at the top all season. This is a tournament that generally tends to award chalk for the most part. And so it is finding those other upset potentials. Teams like Duke that you mentioned who are rolling in hotter than fish grease, who when they've actually been healthy and had their starters on the floor have been a team that's capable of winning an ACC championship. So that's what's going to be at stake for us as we get on our journey of our March Madness pool, which we are going to start. We will have the link out on our show's Twitter handle coming up this week as we get ready for the tournament and get that filled out. So you'll be able to play along with us. We're going to figure out some sort of prize for whoever wins that pool, but then also for the bet between you and I, Brandon, because to your point about how this actually goes down, you got to make sure you get right because there are going to be stakes on the line for this one.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that, but I am looking forward to the pageantry of it because March Madness, it's a special time where you just want to be right, but everyone's going in pretty blind.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Seth Davis, who does a college basketball reporter for CBS Sports, put together a great thread that is more than worth your time at Seth Davis Hoops on Twitter about how the seeding process for March Madness goes down. It's very interesting relative to what we normally get now for the college football playoff, which uses a similar model. 13-person group for the college playoff, I believe a 12-person panel for college basketball, but there's much more math. It's much more formulaic in college hoops because, as Seth points out, it's impossible for everyone on the committee to watch every game played by all of these teams.
Yes.
It is extremely difficult. It's unexpected. And so they lean heavily on the numbers like the NCAA selection committee or the college football playoff selection committee. You've got sheets with specific numbers, the Ken Pom numbers, a lot of things about each of these different teams, their net rating that they use to try and compare all these teams. He also pointed out the eye test really does not exist for that reason, that there's never been a correlation as they've studied the tournament between how a team is played late in the season and how it actually plays in the tournament outside of accounting for injury, which is what these human committees are supposed to account for. So all things as you get going that are worth noting. But Brandon, you talked about one of, I thought, the best nuggets as far as how people start to build out their brackets. According to Seth Davis, over the last 20 tournaments, 60% of Final Four teams have been 1 seeds, 32% have been 2 seeds, and 18% have been 5 seeds or below. And so by and large, it's kind of like the star rating system in college sports. People tend to know who the goods are. And barring any sort of injury, like we mentioned with Houston, usually chalk is going to be your friend, understanding that there's almost always like a 12-5 matchup mixed in there and some seeds that are going to make some noise early on.
Yeah, I don't trust those numbers because I like to live in the world where I'm rooting for the George Washingtons of the world to make the Final Four. Like I can't stop rooting against what George Mason want to see happen. Excuse me, I'm sorry, George Mason.
George Washington.
Hey, that's a school, right? But yeah, I love it because all of the analysts and all the people that really do make their money following college basketball are usually about as right as we are.
Yeah, it's an extremely difficult place because of the numbers to actually be right consistently. Like, it's called March Madness for a reason, so we expect a lot of that bullshit to pop up.
But what is what I love about this time is like finding the random reasons why to pick a team.
Well, yeah, there's always that question of, listen, as someone a couple of years ago who did a tournament challenge preview with Butler Blue, the Bulldog mascot for the Butler Bulldogs when the tournament was in Indy, a lot of people will pick by mascot. A lot of people will pick by uniform color. A lot of people will pick by, the coaches that they like. Any number of things that are all worth it. Like, how many times have you ever been in an office pool where someone's 9-year-old daughter ends up winning because they pick the schools based on favorite color? At some point, it goes out the window because it's also a completely different set of circumstances for all of these players than what they normally play in, especially once you get to the tournament sites and things start going down like that. You're locked into that situation a little bit more. You're away from school for a long period of time. It's just all abnormal, and these are 18 to 22-year-olds, so nothing is predictable about these kids.
Okay, but what is your favorite part about this time of the year when it comes specifically to March Madness?
First weekend, by far. It is one of my favorite weekends of sports watching as you get going. To just be able to park. I did it in Vegas one year. I was out there for our buddy and longtime friend of the podcast, Dane Chris, bachelor party. And to roll into that weekend on Thursday and just get to park your ass, go run to the sports book, bet all over the place on it, but to just get to sit and have games on every screen, to always have something happening. And because of the volume, it's like watching the Red Zone channel in the NFL. You always have something interesting that's going to happen. That's why I said Conference Champ Weekend is like NCAA Tournament Light, because you've always got something happening. And just by sheer volume, you're going to get something entertaining enough to warrant the attention of everybody in the room. We all know everyone's watching it at once, and I love a good communal watch. So the first weekend of March Madness is one of the best sports weekends of the year, hands down.
I like the first weekend, Mike, but that is the beginning of the narrative. And I need like Sweet 16 for a narrative to really settle in, like, the Oral Roberts of the world. Like I need something I need a narrative to begin that first weekend.
So you want a Cinderella is what you want. It sounds like your favorite part of the tournament is a Cinderella.
I mean, my favorite part, yes, Dunk City. Like to see a team that is just clicking, like fight that entire time and beat a team full of blue blood 5 stars. Yes, love it every time. Like even I know Purdue has made themselves a 1 seed, but back in the day when like Grady Eifert was on the team, and like obviously BJ Ivy was amazing for the team, last year. But when Purdue was just that Big Ten team that they are in football on the basketball court too, like I like that. I like the Valparaiso. Like yes, I'm here for all of the teams that don't really have much to root for all season long to make a run in the tournament. And whatever that means, what a run is, whatever that run means, surprising one team.
I guess that's to me. I always like it when it's the first couple of weekends, because then at a certain point, like once you get too far in a tournament, if a team's in over their skis, then you end up getting found out. Later on the tournament, when the schedule evens out a little bit more, then you just end up diluting the product when there's more eyes watching fewer teams. And that's always kind of a bummer, because then you've lost some of the good teams who would have actually given you a good game later on in the tournament.
That's not fair, because you just talked about Butler, and that was one of the best. That was one of the best final, national championship games. Obviously, Villanova, that was really, really exciting. But other than, I guess national championship games can be great, but then there's the duds that scream louder than most. But Butler's a perfect example of like that team was just better. With Gordon Hayward, that team.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not talking about teams that are actually good. I'm saying some of the Cinderellas eventually are going to operate at such a talent deficit that you get to that point. And it's like, all right, now, as we don't have the volume anymore, when the games matter more, when the resources are fewer and each game is more valuable, that's the point where it ends up being kind of a bummer. It's not to diminish how much fun those teams are. Like we talked about with Sister Jean, Loyola Chicago was one of those teams that made a run through the tournament. Florida Gulf Coast, like you mentioned, all of those. Great stories, a great time. Those are the things that we end up talking about years later. Those will be the biggest memories from the tournament, right? Like the George Masons that you mentioned, those are the runs that we remember. So you're right in that that's what a lot of people root for. When you get a team in this tournament like Texas Southern, who wins their conference after going 14-20 on the season. They have 20 losses, and they're going to the NCAA tournament because automatic bids are a thing that happens in college basketball. It's why I argue so hard against it for college football, but here we are. Either way, that's the stuff that you're right, simultaneously makes it exciting, but there's also the double-edged sword that goes on later in these things. And so for me and you, we will have the tournament bracket, like I mentioned, for everyone who listens along with the show to play along with us. We'll figure out some sort of prize for that. You and I also have to decide on our bet for March Madness. I told people that we would take submissions, and I told people that if you commented on the YouTube, they would go to the top of the pile. Shout out to Amy Kless for being the one who listened. She said, all in for a bracket challenge, loser ideas for punishments, sexy calendar photo shoot for the loser, the Waffle House Marathon Challenge, the Beer Mile, a date night with a giant stuffed animal, and the kitchen sink ice cream challenge. Also, she asked if I was a bath bomb guy. Yes, deeply so.
Okay, now I'm more interested in the bath bombs, but let's stick with the punishments. Yeah,
so those are all great ideas here. I wasn't aware of what the kitchen sink contest was. Apparently, according to the San Francisco Creamer, which is the first thing that came up, it was 8 flavors of ice cream, 8 toppings, toasted almonds, cherries, and I think a banana mixed in there, which sounds delicious and like something I would just do in my free time anyway.
Do you have to? No, you would not. Do you have to eat it out of the kitchen sink?
No, I don't think so. I think it's the term, like everything but the kitchen, everything in the kitchen sink is sort of a term.
Oh, no. Trust me, I know. If you've ever been to Panera, the highest caloric intake cookie you can get is the kitchen sink cookie. I think it's 1430. Whew, it's a beast.
Oh, yeah. I hate calorie listings on things. That's emotional terrorism, and I don't support that. Yeah.
That's been one of the best things Americans done in the last 10 years.
What, you like going to the movie theater and being reminded of how much you're sinning? I know what I'm eating is bad when I go to the movie theater. I absolutely, in places like that, I can understand on restaurant menus why you got to play with the cards up. I get that. But for places like the movie theater, I know the popcorn I'm eating is high in calorie. I know the pretzel bites are bad for me. I know anything I eat there is going to do me harm. That's the social contract I sign the minute I step into the building here. You throwing that in my face when I'm trying to have a good time and escape to the joy of the movies is, again, emotional terrorism, and I won't support it.
Mike, numbers are important. And it's very important to know just how down the rabbit hole you've gone, especially on a movie night, Mike. And Dr. Oz, back before he started running for office, he told me one time that a large popcorn has more calories than a double quarter pounder with cheese. And I've never forgotten it.
Yeah,
Clearly.
Again, I know all those things, and I don't give a shit. It's like when Super Size Me came out. I know it's bad for me, but every once in a while, I'm going to go eat that shit. Also, don't think the novelty of you saying numbers matter moments after saying you don't believe the stats on the NCAA tournament that I read you are true is lost on me.
Well, let me get back to numbers real quick, and let me get back to the bracket real quick, because talk about random teams to root for and why, like colors, mascots, X, Y, and Z. I brought up the Purdue Boilermakers for a reason, Mike, because they have a guard, number 5, who's 6'5", from Valparaiso, Indiana, named Brandon Newman.
Oh, wow.
I've loved seeing him pop up in the stats, not because of the great things he does, but the mediocre things he does. Because his stat line in the Big Ten championship against Penn State was like literally me when I play a pickup game. 31 minutes, 4 points, 7 rebounds, 1 assist. Like, that is perfect. And by the way, one of those of the 4 points was a 3-pointer at a buzzer beater before halftime. So it's like a big splash moment, but everything else is just like all grit and cleaning up the boards. So shout out to Brandon Newman. I'm going to be rooting for the Purdue Boilermakers to make it all the way through.
Yeah, the big bench mob moments. We love a good bench mob moment, especially in the NCAA tournament. So we'll get to our picks as we go along in the week. Nicole Arbach from The Athletic is going to join us tomorrow to break down some more of the specifics of the tournament, because she watched a lot more college basketball than I did this season. But Brandon, you and I do have to pick a punishment for the tournament. I appreciate all of those that we got submitted on YouTube here. The one I wanted to pitch to you, and I've mentioned this to you off air, is I think whoever of the two of us loses, as we pick, I'm like my dad. I fill out multiple brackets every year. I'm going to fill out multiple brackets this year for the potential of winning the overall pool. But you and I are each going to have to dub one bracket of ours the bracket for this content, the sheet of integrity, as it was often referred to on Mike and Mike. And the winner of that is going to have show supremacy. And the loser of that, I propose, should have to redo Pro Day.
Okay. Slow down, because the 3-cone drill is awful. Are we doing it based on how many wins that a particular bracket gets, or they're a team that they say was going to win getting further along in the bracket?
No, so we're I think probably going to use the NCAA's website bracket challenge. They score it based on the team wins. They'll keep the score on all of that. It'll be out of our hands. It'll be whose bracket ends up having the highest score, and that's based on how many of the teams that you pick right go along in every round. And one of us will win, and the loser will redo Pro Day at Notre Dame. Make it a comfortable.
Notre Dame.
Yes, we'll make it a home game. We'll make it comfortable. I'm sure we can try and get on the horn with somebody and get them to let us use that nice indoor around there. Maybe even use some of the materials and then see where it goes.
That takes away the caveat I was going to add. I was going to say they should probably be inebriated while doing so, but let's keep it clean if we're in actual God country.
I also just want to keep us uninjured, and so being sober for this probably be the way to go. So,
you just
Brandon,
want to have a medical staff nearby.
100%. So, Brandon, would you agree to that?
Okay, how many pro day events are we talking?
I'm talking the 40-yard dash.
Okay.
225 bench test. Okay. Short shuttle. 3-cone drill. Vert and broad. You won't have to do the position drills.
The position drills are the worst, Mike.
I know.
That's the stuff that kills you. Okay. I like that. And because it's the punishment really is having your numbers on paper at the end of the day. So it's just like, who wants that?
100% to see the comp and how the sands of time have absolutely beaten you down. So, again, at Gojo Show on Twitter is where we'll put out all the information on where the bracket challenge is going to be that you can participate in with us. But that's what's going to be on the line for me and Brandon. Also, the women's tournament bracket, want to give that seeding out as well, as that's going to get going at the same time. The number one seed line is as follows. The Pac-12 regular season co-champions, the Stanford Cardinal, the ACC tournament champion, Virginia Tech Hokies, and the Big Ten regular season champ, Indiana, will be joining the defending national champion, South Carolina Gamecocks, as the 1 seed. South Carolina, which hasn't lost a game in over a calendar year, is just 6 wins away from becoming the 4th program to repeat as national champions, joining UConn, Tennessee, and USC, as well as the 5th to complete an undefeated season alongside UConn, Tennessee, Texas, and Baylor. So that one's going to be exciting. Iowa with Caitlin Clark, one of the best players in college basketball, men's or women's, on the 2 line alongside the UConn Huskies, Maryland, and Utah. And our Notre Dame Fighting Irish are also going to be hosting first and second round games. Them, Duke, Ohio State, LSU are all 3 seeds. In addition to UCLA, Villanova, Texas, and Tennessee are all 4 seeds. So Lady Irish checking in at the 3rd seed spot for this tournament here. Obviously, Olivia Miles, her being down, the youngest Mabry sister being down, don't make me feel great about our chances. But hey, we can all hope that someone's going to get South Carolina to stub their toe in this tournament, because it seems like Dawn Staley's bag to lose.
Yeah, I would not bet against Dawn Staley. Those numbers, I believe.
Yeah, no, just that's a friendly word of advice to everybody. Betting against Dawn Staley, not a great idea. So this is the 2nd year. The women's team is going to include 68 teams. The first 4 games are going to be on Wednesday and Thursday on campus sites. That is Sacred Heart versus Southern, Tennessee Tech versus Monmouth, Illinois versus Mississippi State, and Purdue versus St. John's. For the men's side, I believe that's Texas A&M and Southeast Missouri State, and then one of the playing games, Texas Southern and Fairleigh Dickinson, Arizona State and Nevada, and Mississippi State and Pitt are the playing games on the men's side as well. So plenty more of that to get into. Like we said, we'll get to the nitty-gritty with Nicole Arbach tomorrow. But Brandon, in a weekend that was supposed to belong to college basketball, the NFL decided to get real froggy and jump. We had plenty of news in the NFL, most notably the number 1 overall pick of the NFL draft being traded well before we got to actual draft day. The Bears traded the number 1 overall pick to the Panthers in exchange for 4 picks and wide receiver DJ Moore, sources told ESPN. The Bears get Carolina's first-round selection at number 9, a late second-round pick, a 2024 first-round pick, and a 2025 second-round pick, in addition to DJ Moore. Brandon, what a haul for the Chicago Bears. We heard them being loud and trying to drum up all sorts of interest. We wondered if any of it was false bravado trying to create a market. And instead, they got a haul, including in a year where we've talked about the wide receiver free agent class, not an overly impressive group. We talked about Odell Beckham Jr.'s workout last week. DJ Moore has been a wide receiver that has gone for over 1,100 yards receiving 3 times in his NFL career so far, with quarterbacks like Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Teddy Bridgewater, Josh Johnson, and the Pips. Like, it has been a struggle, and that man is produced. And so to get him in an offense where, you know, you've got a quarterback in Justin Fields who you're now committed to, right? This decision lets you know the Bears, backing up what they've said publicly, Ryan Poles, their GM, that they want to stick around and they want to see Justin Fields and put weapons around him to make it happen. Still keeps them in range where potentially with some of this capital, I'll be interested to see if the Bears, who now sit at 9 in the draft where the Panthers were, think about trading back up to get in range of one of those defensive prospects if all of a sudden Will Anderson or Jalen Carter start falling down the board as these quarterback-needy teams climb higher and higher, because they do need to install a defensive identity again. There's a couple of guys that we just mentioned that are big on that front, but overall, big-time win for the Chicago Bears in this. And for Ryan Poles, really one of his first major moves as GM of this team. overwhelming success. Chicago folks in Chicago, I think, could and should feel very happy about what their team has done with this.
Yeah, I've always not been able to trust what the Chicago Bears do with wide receivers, especially drafting them and cultivating them X, Y, and Z. The fact that they got DJ Moore, just lean on the fact that the Carolina Panthers fans are really hurt by this. Like they're not, like they're losing not only a weapon, but like someone who was a beacon of light, and now he's gone to make room for the new beacon of light, the new what hopes to be the Cam Newton pick that helps the Carolina Panthers be relevant and end up, making a playoff run later on down the line.
Yeah, you're right. That was one, and it sounded like DJ Moore being included was in order to prevent the Panthers from having to send another first-round draft pick potentially to the Chicago Bears. Man. And from that standpoint, obviously nothing's a binary, but if you're thinking about that as the thought process, it makes sense to me just because if you're Carolina now, going to get a young quarterback means the timeline of your team is different. Really, once you dealt Christian McCaffrey last year, you were signaling that the timeline for your team was different. And while some of the key defensive pieces are still there, they're a lot younger. And that's the side of the ball. You still need something to help your young quarterback, even if it's not on offense right now. You'd love for him to have more weapons, but I think you would also like to have the draft capital going forward even more as you're going to try to operate and build your roster more in line with the timeline of whoever you take with the 1 overall pick at quarterback, which now becomes a bigger part of the conversation, right? Who do you actually mortgage that kind of draft capital to go up and get if you're David Tepper, the owner for the Carolina Panthers and this team? I know in real time, as I was this weekend sitting around in a newly opened DraftKings sportsbook that we will talk about when we get to Roses for this weekend, was looking at the bets for the number 1 overall pick coming up in the draft. The odds, as soon as this was announced for CJ Stroud to go number 1 overall, shifted dramatically. As of right now, CJ Stroud on DraftKings Sportsbook, minus 300 to be the number 1 overall pick, followed by Bryce Young at plus 235 and Anthony Richardson at plus 450. The next closest is Will Levis at 4, who is plus 3,500. So pretty big drop off once you get outside of the CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and Anthony Richardson range, which is who I said, if you were going to ask me who you could justify taking with the top overall pick in the draft, it would be one of these 3 players, and for varying reasons. So I would imagine, Brandon, CJ Stroud is probably the one. Some of the comments from Frank Reich before the combine talking about what he looks for in a quarterback sounded a lot more like CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, guys who are a little bit more further along in their development as quarterbacks. But like we saw when the 49ers traded up in the draft to make their pick a couple of years ago, there is part of you that always wonders, hey, if you're giving up that much, are you going to do it to get a guy with a special skill set that you think you can coach? I don't want to say once in a generation, but generational type traits, the way that you have in Anthony Richardson. So he was going off at plus 550 when I saw it. I sprinkled a little money on there for him to go number 1 overall just in case, because it would not shock me, both with the skills that he has, but also with the owner in Carolina, David Tepper, who has, if you go back and read the articles when he first took over the team, a literal set of brass balls on his desk in his office in Carolina. He is a guy who has been pushing and churning at that position, looking for special because he wants this franchise to be great now. And it seems like the kind of guy who might opt for special when it comes to the 1 overall pick in the draft, because he clearly wants to make this thing happen fast.
Yeah, I can't get out of my mind that those are Sir Purr's balls on his table, or that the CGI Panther that's crawling over their stadium. But you say CJ Stroud is where you think, obviously you put some money on Anthony Richardson, but do you think CJ Stroud is the best quarterback in this draft? I thought you've said a lot of great things about Bryce Young.
Bryce Young is the best quarterback in this class as far as what he did in college. I have worries about the size. I do. And I think if you're looking for the middle ground, like if there was a huge gap between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, I would feel a lot different. But I think CJ Stroud on his best day has shown one of the best pure throwers of the football in this draft. We saw in the big moments, and I know it's one game against Georgia, But I think overall, CJ Stroud is just mobile enough to do the things you do to get you out of trouble when you're at the top of the draft. I think he throws a really good football. I think he operates in an offense that's got some pro tenets to it. Certainly used to throwing to NFL wide receivers because that's basically all they've got at Ohio State. So just overall, I think he's got the arm strength that you're looking for. He's certainly bigger than Bryce, and part of that's going to matter. He's not the biggest guy in the world either. He's not Anthony Richardson or Will Levis. But I think he's closest to the combination of skills and traits that you would need to feel the most comfortable taking him with the number 1 overall pick after you just gave up everything that you did in Carolina to get there.
I am such a basic B when it comes to the draft because if we're not talking about quarterbacks at that number 1 pick, I am bored to death.
Oh, I mean, listen, the draft without quarterback conversation as a product is a lot harder to sell. We went through that last year. Kenny Pickett was the only quarterback taken in the first round last year. And trying to sell that conversation in the lead up to the draft, we ended up having a decent discussion about the number 1 overall pick and some late volatility and movement there. But in general, draft season selling it to the public is about selling quarterbacks. That's why this year is going to be so fun for everybody because we've barely even gotten, like I joked and went back and watched Will Anderson the other day. We talked with Field Yates about this. We haven't really talked about that dude at all. And he's a guy that was in contention for the number 1 pick for a long time, in contention to be the first defensive player taken off the board. And we've just been so bored with greatness and love quarterbacks so much, we won't even probably get there for most of this draft cycle.
He was preseason. Is this going to be the first time, or is a defensive player finally going to win the Heisman again? Like preseason,
like coming off the 21 season he had. So that would be, I think. But you're right. Like quarterbacks are the interesting part, and especially in this draft because they're so different. Because the conversation's so tough around all of them about what you should value and why. And now, especially with this, where you've given up a lot to get there. You've given up 2 firsts and then multiple picks besides that if you're the Carolina Panthers. And reportedly from them, now, again, I don't think you're going to come out and necessarily state your intentions. They even talked about now we control our fate. Like if we don't want to sit at the 1 spot, maybe we can trade back too. But now we've got the option, which as friend of the podcast, Ryan Nanny said is, oh, don't worry. I can sell this boat that I just bought if I don't like it. Like, it's sort of a ridiculous notion. They've claimed that there's multiple quarterbacks that they are comfortable with, and they have yet to hone in on just one yet. We'll wait and see, but again, I wouldn't rule out the Anthony Richardson option here. This is the 3rd time the Panthers have had the top overall pick. In their first season in 1995, they had it and traded it to the Bengals for the number 5 pick in the first round and the 36th pick in the second round. They drafted Kerry Collins at quarterback at 5. And then they had the top pick in 2011 and selected Cam Newton. So that one went pretty well. But so that's kind of where we're at right now. So super exciting. Obviously, love to see that. That was a pick we figured was going to be on the move because Chicago stated intention to keep Justin Fields. And so now we get to wait and see as we go through. Is there anything that comes out as we get to some of these pro days? We're going to have a couple of those web gem throws for as frustrated as my dad gets with the combine, even more so at pro day where you're comfortable, you're throwing to your own receivers on a scripted set. It's all the things he hates most in the world. So we'll have plenty of time to get to that. But Brandon, we also had other news in the NFL this weekend. Jalen Ramsey, former quarterback of the Los Angeles Rams, got traded to the Miami Dolphins on Sunday. An incredible move. He gets moved for a 3rd round draft pick in this year's draft and tight end Hunter Long. And that's it. Like, I was a bit perplexed at the price tag for a guy that was a first-team All-Pro in 2021, was one of the few bright spots on a bad team this year that struggled overall. It's just to be clear, it's the 77th overall pick in the 3rd round this year, and Hunter Long. So, Brandon, Miami loading up, right? Picked up to his 5th-year option amidst all the Brady rumors and everything going around there, but to go and get a player of this caliber on a defense that struggled some on the back end, put him opposite Xavier Howard, behind a D-line that really performed well last year. I think if you're looking for bright spots of that Dolphins defense and what they did, Christian Wilkins and the rest of that group up front looked really strong at certain times. AFC East about to be fun this year, man, especially if the Jets end up pulling off this Rodgers trade.
Yes, like now we're not to get excited about quarterback talk again, because let's focus on Jalen Ramsey. I love how much they gave up for him, or how much they got for him, because I feel like that's where he's evaluated, minus the tight end. Like, I feel like Jalen Ramsey is a exciting question mark at this point in time. Obviously he's going to produce, Mike. Obviously he's going to produce, but is that production going to lead you to the playoffs in the AFC East? And I don't believe it is. And I think that's one of my biggest things. Like, even when Khalil Mack got traded and went over to the Chargers, everyone was all excited. And I was like, this isn't going to make the Chargers a playoff team. And it didn't. So, like, as much as I want to get excited about former all-pro players making big team moves, there's a reality to why they're making the move too, where not that they don't have anything left, which obviously I know that's not the case for Jalen Ramsey, and obviously wasn't the case for Khalil Mack. He made a bunch of big plays this season, but let's be real between great personal moves for a player and great team moves for a franchise.
Well, so, I mean, what you're talking about is positional value. Like, I think I saw DraftKings Sportsbook put out the tweet about the odds of the Dolphins to win the Super Bowl. They probably didn't change much. I don't think they changed at all. Right. Because it's not a quarterback. Like, there's one position when you trade them on a football team that can realistically change your odds of winning a Super Bowl, and it's the quarterback. Besides that, yes, we know, and I've said this to you about a bunch of other teams that we've argued about. This was our entire conversation about the Ravens and Roquan Smith coming over. Roquan Smith's a great player, but a championship team doth not a middle linebacker make. The same way that a quarterback, which is an inherently more valuable position on a defense, does not make a championship team. The ceiling is ultimately going to be decided by what Tua does and what happens with the quarterback position in Miami this season. This is just another floor-raising move. This is them continuing what they started last offseason, bringing in Teron Armstead, bringing over Tyreek Hill, trying to build the young core of this team that Jalen Ramsey at 28 years old is still a part of right now.
Yeah. Okay. I hear you. I just feel like he is very much one of the new media people, and not to say that means that he's like less focused on the field, which obviously he still is. He wouldn't be getting this contract if he wasn't. But I am not tantalized or excited about the Dolphins' potential week in, week out with Jalen Ramsey on that team. Like, I feel like that defense needs a Roquan Smith level leader on that side of the ball. And I don't know if Jalen Ramsey is interested in being that. He's not. He's no longer with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, that was the last time I feel like he was really had the captain hat on. Obviously, that time with the Rams, he played his role well, and he was very important. But they also had Aaron Donald in the middle, who was actually the leader of that defense.
I'm less concerned with the leadership stuff and more concerned about what you're going to do on the field. And I think a lot of the notion of Jalen Ramsey...
How's that not the same thing?
Because what Jalen Ramsey does as a cornerback preventing receivers from catching footballs matters more to me than if he gives a good speech before the game.
Does he do that?
Stops receivers from catching footballs?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Like, I know it's one metric and I have beefs with their grades, but Pro Football Focus had him as one of the highest rated corners from this last year. Like, people thought he had a down year this last year because the Rams sucked ass, because everyone was hurt around him, because at certain points in the year, it was him, Bobby Wagner, and sometimes Aaron Donald with injury and the pips on that defense. And you couldn't overcome how banged up and bad that offense was. There was nothing for them to work with coming off a year where you could like, Jalen Ramsey is one of the few defensive backs stats where you can watch down in and down out and just understand, dude is bigger, faster, stronger than most people he's going up against. And maybe he's losing a step at this point. Maybe as a 28-year-old, he's losing a little bit of a step. But my whole point is, when you couple that with Miami and some of the rushers that I think they've got up front that are going to continue to produce for them, I still think he can play productive football for you in a division where now you've got Josh Allen throwing the football for the Buffalo Bills, and you're going to potentially have Aaron Rodgers coming over to the New York Jets and an offense that's going to sling the ball around. It's an understanding of, what am I going to need to get out of this division alive? I'm going to need to be able to stop people from passing. Jalen Ramsey helps you do that. Does he do it to a level that's going to immediately make you a championship contender? No, especially not in how competitive the AFC is. I mean, you look at the AFC and you line up the quarterbacks in that division of football. We talked about it last year. It's a juggernaut, but he absolutely helps you in areas that are going to be important to playing football in that division. And in the NFL, first and foremost, you got to win your division before you do anything else.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm excited for him to have a fresh start. I'm excited for Mike McDaniels to have somebody to alike when it comes to trust on the other side of the defense, and obviously him getting his guys in there on defense. But that defense was good without Jalen Ramsey last year. Obviously they'll be better with him, but there's going to be, the Dolphins just aren't there. The Dolphins aren't there, and Jalen Ramsey knows he's not trading to a Super Bowl ready team the way it was when he moved over to the Rams so long ago.
I mean, it's not as immediately ready, but they're loading up. And again, if they can keep Tua on the field and healthy, we saw how dangerous that team was for a lot of last year with all the team speed on that roster, which, by the way, did you watch Tyreek Hill in that USA track and field event? Jesus Christ.
Running for coffee. I saw he fast for real.
Yes, he is. He, by the way, also posted that video of him and Jalen Ramsey from the Pro Bowl flag football game, where, I don't know if you remember, someone on the AFC side pitched the ball back to Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Ramsey forgot it was flag football and laid Tyreek the hell out. And he said practices are going to be live next year. So real people don't forget moment.
Oh, man. Yeah, listen, Jalen Ramsey is the perfect version of Marcus Peters. I'm talking about the right person, right?
The cornerback for the Ravens?
Thank you. Where he gives an edge and a bit of unpredictableness to your defense, and I feel like the ceiling the floor gets raised slightly with that defense, but you better be ready for some penalties.
Ramsey was the third highest ranked quarterback in the NFL last season, according to Pro Football Focus. He finished the year with 4 picks, 18 pass defenses, 12 pass breakups, 3 forced fumbles, and 2 sacks. His 4 interceptions tied his career high. In 7 seasons, he's got 19 picks, 7 forced fumbles, and 2 sacks, and was a first-team All-Pro in 2017, 2020, and 2021. This is also happening because the Rams are just purging their books right now. That's a team that's in a major transition moment, even if, and there's some rumblings about Matthew Stafford's future, but even if he's back, your O-line's going to automatically, hopefully, be healthier than last year's tire fire, and that'll improve it some, but they've burned a lot of resources to get the Super Bowl they've got. I still think that is overwhelmingly worth it to get a championship in a 5 or 10 year window, but they've got to move on from some things now. Part of what will be interesting with Jalen Ramsey too is if this trade means any of his contract is going to be changed or altered. So Jalen Ramsey's due $17 million this year, and then after next year, he's got no guaranteed money left on his contract. So he's due $14.5 million as base salary with a $4 million roster bonus in 2024, but I believe they're out of the guaranteed money in his contract at that point. So I don't know if, usually a lot of these trades, when they happen, there's a lot of leverage for the player being traded to go and then negotiate a new deal based off what a team gave up to get him. But again, for the price of just a third rounder and Hunter Long, that feels a little bit different.
Yeah.
But exciting, and on a weekend, where we had Aaron Rodgers going on the I Am Athlete podcast while he was at some quarterback camp, talking about the decision will get made soon and still being very cryptic about everything. It seems like the hay is in the barn already with that one. You had Aaron Rodgers, who we're used to hearing from on Pat McAfee's show, going on a different publication for now the second time with news coming off of his darkness retreat. And then you had Packers president Mark Murphy at the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association women's basketball tournament, talking to local news stations there, giving the quotes about how they let Aaron Rodgers talk to the Jets to not only try and find the best deal for him, but to try and find the best deal for the team. He said, here's the quote. "We did give them permission, but I really can't get into the details. We're really hopeful we can reach a resolution that not only works for us, but also works for Aaron, but also works for us." He told Green Bay's ABC affiliate WBAY they allowed him for the Jets meeting to help Aaron achieve what he wanted as well as the Packers and hopefully create a situation where it's a win for both sides. Very few players play for only one team, and obviously Brett Favre had a great career. Aaron had a great career here. And regardless of what happens, Aaron will be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He'll be in our Hall of Fame. And we'll bring him back and retire his number. But this is just one of the things you go through as a team. Again, we want to try and achieve something that's good for both Aaron and us. That sounds like a man who is the president of a team who understands that guy is not going to be playing quarterback for them next year. So it seems like the Jets deal is all over, but the specific details of it at this point, Brandon, because everyone is operating, being, I think, respectful enough of the actual due diligence of the deal and what everyone's trying to hammer out, while also really giving us no indication that reconciliation is a possible prospect.
No, I was going to say it sounds like someone who doesn't want Aaron Rodgers to be their quarterback next year. And I think that's something that we've heard rumblings over and of, but for it to get brought up in a place where we're not expecting to hear Aaron Rodgers news is telling, because it's like, okay, first mic that he get in front of, he had an opportunity to tell the world how the franchise feels about Aaron Rodgers moving forward. He did. And I think it was everything that we already knew, but boy, I feel like the Jets have to feel better about what's to come after hearing those words from the president of the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, and they, gave the same ringing endorsement of Jordan Love. Like, he's going to get his chance at this now, I would imagine, barring truly something unforeseen this offseason if they were to go and swing in the quarterback market. So we'll all be happy when it's over, because this has been one where there's been nothing to talk about for a while, and we've still talked about it anyway because they feel like all talking about nothing at this point. But I hope that they wait until like the middle of this week, right before the NCAA tournament, while we're at a lull for information. That would be, as someone like Aaron Rodgers, who understands and works in the content business partly, a big content move that I think we would all appreciate.
Yeah, when's this McAfee hit? I feel like it's going to be right before then.
It's usually on Tuesday, so it'd be nice if they did it on Tuesday. So, but that just adds to the conversation about the AFC East. We would finally get Aaron Rodgers over there. I forgot, too, in this conversation about Jalen Ramsey, Vic Fangio's the defensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins now. So you've got one of the better defensive coordinator minds in the NFL teaming up with a defense that's got that quarterback Tannen and Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey, Bradley Chubb, who they brought over last year as well during the season, like Christian Wilkins, who we mentioned. There's some stuff to get excited about there with a side of the ball that they are trying to shore up opposite the Mike McDaniel offense. So plenty of moving and shaking that went on in the NFL over the weekend. But Brandon, none of these people are receiving roses this weekend. It's Monday on this show. We give out 2 roses apiece to deserving winners of the weekend. Brandon, I will go first and give out my first rose of the weekend to the Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Dodge City, Kansas. I got to go there this weekend to help open up the new DraftKings Sportsbook inside the casino, and it kicked ass. Like, first off, I love casinos to begin with. They had slot machine tournaments and a blackjack tournament going on, which took a lot of restraint from me to not go and get a part of. They had in the sports book. Yeah, either. Christ.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I love a good not a blackjack tournament, but I love playing blackjack. Just thankfully wasn't in the cards. Had to be there. I did get to be part of the ribbon cutting ceremony. Did get to use comically large pair of scissors. And let me tell you, the woman who was instructing me on the scissors said, make sure you get it deep in the pocket of the scissors. They're not that sharp. I disagree. Those things were weapons I had to handle with care. That was incredibly sharp, and I could have injured myself, but I didn't. And now I get to check off my list, getting to use a large pair of scissors to help cut a ribbon in an introduction ceremony. I always wanted to shoot a t-shirt cannon, got to do that at Hartford Yard Goats game circa 2019, and now I've gotten to use the big scissors. So huge success there. Shout out to everybody at Boot Hill. Shout out to the guys I was hanging out with in the sports book there watching college basketball. Hit a 5-leg college basketball parlay during the semi-final round of conference championship weekend. Won about $1,500. Life is good.
What? You're heating up. Damn.
It was my first college basketball bets of the season, and it was me and 4 other guys, and we were sitting around going, all right, want to get involved in this, want to feel froggy. We each picked a team to go ahead and win. It was like Duke, Kansas, Texas A&M, Grand Canyon, and one other team. And I'll be damned if I wasn't up until like 2:00 in the morning Eastern, watching the very end of that Texas game, sweating this thing out. So hell of a start. Shout out to Boot Hill. Shout out to everybody in Dodge City. Very fun trip.
Sicko committee moves to college basketball. Mike, I need to know about the scissors real quick. Did they make a sound as they cut through the ribbon?
Yes, very like
they did.
It was the sound that they would dub in a movie over the scissors. Ooh, it's a stock, like if you were to look in a soundboard, it would be the stock scissors cutting sound. I was super proud of it. I hit that thing hard because I really didn't want to risk not cutting all the way through it. It was marvelous.
Man, I love that. I love to hear it. Love to hear it. Are you going to get your second rose, or you want me to do my rose?
No, give me one of your roses first.
Okay. All right. My rose this week goes to 23andMe, Mike. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's a company that steals your DNA and sends you an email afterwards, after about a month. So I found out who I was, who I am, the different parts of me via my 23andMe. Shouts out to DraftKings again, because I was able to purchase this 23andMe kit from a Amazon gift card gift that they gave all the employees. So I was like, I don't know what I want to do with this thing. Oh, look, I can get 23andMe, a little gift for myself. So I got the results back, Mike. I got them back while I was in Philadelphia for the King Summit with my dad. So it was very fun to see the numbers of where I come from and where we come from, and then to kind of go over them with my father. Would you like to hear any highlights from my findings?
Sure. What interested you the most? This is something for me I've never cared much about, because like most of my ancestral background is just like stock white shit. So
yeah, but like I will say this, like growing up as a token black kid around a bunch of white kids, it seemed like all you guys talked about, not all you guys, sorry to do this.
Did you just people us?
Yes, and I'm doing it for a specific point. But like it seemed like everyone, all they could talk about was like where their family was from. Like, I don't know if it's just like a white kid elementary school thing, or like middle school thing, but like it was all I heard about. Everybody's like, "Oh, I'm from like my family. I'm connected to Napoleon," and all stuff like that. And everybody's like turns to me like, "Brandon, where do you?" I was like, "I don't know. The paperwork got lost in the transatlantic slave trade. I don't know." See, we don't talk about it at dinner.
I think part of that is certainly that difference in background and like, especially how schools teach it. Because I only knew part of it because in elementary school, we did a mock Ellis Island exercise where we each had to go back, find one of our ancestors who came over to the U.S. through Ellis Island, and then learn about them, play their role, and go through Ellis Island. And all I remember is I nailed all the Ellis Island tests, and then I got to eat a bologna sandwich. And at that point, it was the first time I had ever had a bologna sandwich, and I remember liking bologna. Nice. And I also remember me and the girl, I think her name was Liz, in my class. I was technically playing my grandpa and she was playing my grandma, and we were faking English accents because they came over from England. And so I remember her asking me if I wanted a bologna sandwich with a bad English accent. Core memory.
Nice. Okay. That just tells me how many white kids were in that class. But
yeah, in Avon, Connecticut, there were a lot of white kids in that class.
Yes, but I will say this. One of the things I thought was cool, 33% Nigerian. So I've always kind of rooted for Nigeria in the World Cup, so that felt right. My heart was leading me there. Specifically the Igbo people. It's very interesting if you do the 23andMe. I know you never will because for all the right reasons you're paranoid about it, but you've said my government name so much on this podcast, I figured I might as well finish it off by giving them my spit and blood as well. But this was the surprise shocker, Mike. Not only the 1.7% Scandinavian, but the 15.5% Northern Europe, Mike. The 11.7% British and Irish in me. Like, I don't want to get into all the slave movie tropes and about how that possibly could have happened, because I'd like to think maybe there was a love story down the line, but the fact that I got all this British up in me, Mike, is crazy. It's like, I guess I wasn't my bloodline has been the token black kid for a long time.
I'm just amazed that you have that much British and Irish in you, and your accent is still so shit.
What are you talking about, Beth? Bev, what are you talking?
It gets worse every time you do it.
Bev, I have no idea what you're talking about. Is that a great Irish accent? A great British accent?
This is an affront to your people.
My people, Mike. But anyways, so there's a lot the stuff that goes into it, Mike. I'll drop this little nugget and then we can move on to your next rose. Your boy got some Neanderthal variants in my blood. Like of the people who send in their DNA to 23andMe, I am of the 1% that can be traced all the way back to Neanderthals. Shouts out to the originals.
Damn, the OGs.
Yes. And they say nothing about no dinosaurs in that. So
that's probably why you were so damn strong all the time, man. You got Neanderthal strength in there. Built different.
I thought that was all the British stuff. I was like, just be, I thought, that was being fat meant being wealthy back in the day. So I don't know.
Oh my God. Oh man. Congratulations on finding out more about where you came from, Brandon. Little surprises, happy accidents.
Thank you.
No accident for my second rose. This one goes to Scottie Scheffler. The Players Championship was this weekend for golf and had a pretty interesting Sunday for a little bit when you started to get Max Homa and some guys making things interesting on the leaderboard. But surprise, surprise, Scottie Scheffler ends up winning again. He's now had 6 victories on the tour in his last 27 PGA Tour starts, including 4 wins that he had last year, culminated by a Master Championship. Won about $4.5 million in this one. It's just funny, Brandon, because I started watching Full Swing this last week when I was traveling. And in the second episode, it's been awesome. But as you remember, in the second episode, they're talking about the Waste Management tournament from 2022, which was Scottie Scheffler's first tour win. And they talked about in the lead-up how this guy had all this potential but hadn't won on the tour yet. And now he's been hotter than fish grease ever since. The guy's been incredible. So yet another feather in his cap there. Had a great stretch in the middle of the round where he went something like 4 straight birdies. Is just a golf machine right now and cemented that yet again this weekend.
Yeah, I've starting to really enjoy golf, but don't tell the PGA Tour, Live has helped.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it. There's no doubt that animosity between the folks left in the PGA and Live has heightened the intensity. That some of the things the PGA has done as a result of fattening the purses, creating more of these events that are designed to get all the best players there, to get that and have more of that be a part of the tour, have been a direct result of that. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I'm a fan. But okay. Another big company, my second rose of the day, Southwest Airlines. Mike, I know we don't give up stuff for free. And I know they used to have really good commercials. They kind of fell off after a while.
Well, and also coming off of an absolute catastrophe during the holiday travel scene.
For Southwest? Oh, yes. That was really bad.
It was recently. Horrific. So I'm very curious.
They had to give a lot of money back. And had to They had to do some damage control. I'm here to help. Okay.
I'm curious to hear how they have done this.
I usually don't fly Southwest. I don't remember the last time I've flown Southwest, but for this trip to Philly that I took this weekend, I booked some want to get away points, right? So I did the Southwest thing there. I did not set my alarm properly to check in to make sure I get into the A group, right? Now they have this beautiful thing where you can sprinkle some money on it and get right to the A 1 to 15, which is basically priority or first class in a way. That's not why I'm giving them a rose, Mike. I'm giving them the rose because since you can choose your own seats there, I'm a big window guy. Whoever has to sit in the middle seat, I feel bad for them when it comes to sitting next to me because I'm a lot, right? I can only spill over into the enclave of the window so much. That armrest can be yours, but I'm very much on you as well while we're sitting there. I'm spilling over a lot. At Southwest, people refuse to sit next to me because they shouldn't, and they should avoid sitting next to me, and they did because they had the option to, because Southwest, you choose your own flight. So I loved every flight I was on because I had an empty middle seat, and I found a big guy who was sitting on the aisle, and I jumped into the window, and I was like, listen, we're safe. Go ahead. No one's going to try to sit in between us. And no one did, Mike. It was a great experience. I don't know if it's like sizes separation or like instead of it being racist, it's sizist where like people are like trying to make sure they stay against me, but I love it. And I had a great time and had a lot of elbow room and a lot of space just because people saw me and was like, you know what? I'm not sitting next to that. And I feel like that's only a perk that you can get from Southwest, because when you come in and you buy a middle seat ticket, that's where you got to sit.
No, I respect that. Where were you flying to this weekend? You mentioned the King Conference. What is that for people that are unaware?
Okay, thank you. Shout out to Chris Broussard, NBA analyst. Obviously, now he's on First Things First, covering all things with Nick Wright and Kevin Wilds. Couldn't tell you the time of this show comes on, but it comes on a lot. Chris Broussard started a Christian men's group that I am a part of. I got connected to it when I was in LA. There's an LA chapter, but there's chapters all around the country: Cleveland, New York, New Jersey, San Antonio, the Bay Area, Dallas. Not a chapter yet, but a couple brothers there. But anyways, a Christian men's group that I got a part of, and there's this annual summit every year. This year, it was in Philadelphia, the 8th annual summit. I got my dad a part of the group as well, so it's a nice like father-son bonding time. And they're always cap it off with a basketball tournament, a 3-on-3 basketball tournament at the end of the weekend in whatever city that we're in. And that is where I had my chance to play 3-on-3 basketball. I posted my picture of me buying some Mellows, which are great basketball shoes, Mike. But it was just a chance to fellowship with brothers. It was just a really nice, good reset weekend and time to, kind of focus on, I don't know, the things that I find important and things that kind of got me to it. Eddie George was there, spoke. He had a beautiful story. Brian Dawkins, the Hall of Famer, was there and spoke. Jason Avant, if you remember him from the Eagles, he came and spoke and had a great story about, how religion and his relationship with God has helped him over time. So it's just, all of that stuff. If you're interested in that stuff, that's what it was. I am very interested in. That's why I spent my time there. So it was very much worth it. And shout out to Chris Broussard, and he'll come on the podcast soon.
I heard you guys got bounced in the pickup hoops game, though.
Why you just waiting for me to end that thing so you can talk?
Well, I mean, it was beautiful. Yes, I'm glad you had a great time with all that, but you're the one that put out on social media in multiple videos that y'all got your ass whooped at the basketball game. I'm just being a good journalist, even though I'm not technically a journalist, and asking the follow-up question.
I'm pissed because my brothers were supposed to be there with me, and we would have ran the court if my brothers were there with me, but they had conflicts, so they couldn't show up. So I had to do an Island of Misfit Toys makeshift team at the last second, getting a bunch of guys together. And some of these guys, Mike, play basketball in college. Other ones are like fresh out of college. One's 6'3", very long, skinny. Like, I was shocked that I was one of the best players, the best player on the team. And I hadn't played basketball in over a year. So yeah, we got bounced out. I was very upset about it. I don't really consider myself a competitive person, but how much I kept talking to my dad about plays that I left on the court that night. Oh my, it was disgusting. It was disgusting.
That is, it's one of those things. I'm with you. Once I got done with sports, most of the competitive fire left my body. But every once in a while, when you find yourself in the situation and you're already there, you can't help but have it come back up to the surface. So you didn't hurt yourself and you didn't get into a fight with anybody. And that feels like the win.
Oh, but I was talking cash shit at the person who had their like they were like complaining that we didn't take the ball out after and we got a point off of it, and then as I'm talking, because he like took the ball out and was like, "This is how you take the ball." I was like, "We know how to take the ball out," and then he shot a three to like finish the game while I'm chirping at him from the sideline because I subbed myself out. That was the thing, Mike. I led the team in rebounds and subbed myself out, and that was the problem. If I had just been in 20% more shape, then I think we could have won at least one of those games. Chris Broussard told me in advance, he said, we're going to play against actual kids in Philadelphia, so you need to get your run in. Like, don't just come straight off the bench. But, I was... Not that I was cocky. I got other stuff to do. I have 2 kids. So I never had time to go play a pickup basketball game in preparation for this pickup basketball game tournament. And I paid the price for it.
I can say, listen, man, it's all about just changing the bar for success, and not tearing your ACL or not popping an Achilles is the right bar to set for these things, because there is nothing more embarrassing than having to explain your adult injuries to people. You and I both saw the fantasy campers that would come to Notre Dame, CEOs and grown people with jobs who paid money to come back and get to go through Notre Dame football practice in the summer. And then inevitably some 65-year-old ruptures an Achilles who has signed the waiver, but that doesn't excuse him from having to go back to his grown ass job explaining why he's rehabbing during his off time.
Mike, I think this weekend, I shouldn't put any bad pub out there, but I believe someone around 18 years old ruptured their Achilles at this 3-on-3 tournament. So, yes, I am thankful and glad that my team and everyone else on my team that we played against came out safe, because I was out there fouling hard. Like, I was like, listen, I was like, y'all little y'all not about to play me.
Y'all gonna feel me out here.
I was like, I'll help you up, and they had a couple people deny the help up, but y'all not gonna come in here. So I was like, y'all gonna be on. Y'all got to pick yourself off the ground, and that ball's not going in. So, anyways,
I appreciate being young enough to deny the help up. That is a young man's game. Man. Once you get past a certain age, that's a requirement, and that is something that you need. So, glad that you were blessed and highly favored. Glad that you made it out there in one piece. Congratulations to all of the recipients of our weekend roses. Brandon, it's time to ask the most important question of the weekend, though, and it is: do you know what time it is?
It's okay that this, that, and the third song today was a fire fest in itself.
See, there we go. Paying homage. Brandon always has a plan. His timing is perfect. Brandon, the timing couldn't be better for Washington Commanders D tackle Daron Payne as we get to this, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to finish off the day. He gets a new 4-year deal worth $90 million and $60 million guaranteed, according to Adam Schefter on Sunday. He had gotten franchise tagged earlier in the month, but as we know, getting the tag isn't the end. It's just the start. You can get a deal going, and the Commanders wanted to get that deal going before free agency actually started this next week in order to make sure that they could better use that time and money elsewhere in negotiating. So he's now the second highest paid defensive tackle in NFL history besides Aaron Donald, and the 4th NFL defensive lineman to receive $60 or more million guaranteed, according to ESPN Stats and Info. He now joins Myles Garrett, who got $100 million guaranteed, Aaron Donald and Chris Jones, who both got $60 million guaranteed each. So among the interior guys, he is right on par as we talk about the going rate for these things. This is just what happens as time goes on.
Yes, but something that is consistent with time is the fact that the Washington Redskins often pay. They do this. They've done this with Albert Haynesworth, and it didn't work out very well. I've obviously, Daron Payne is a different level of athlete and may deserve this money, but I can't help but to think about Chase Young and him not getting paid when it's time for his number to be called.
Chase Young has played 12 games the last 2 years because of a ruptured patella and torn ACL. So unfortunately, injury has robbed us of a lot of that. For Daron Payne, he also had great season at the right time. He had 14 and a half sacks in his first 4 years. And then last year had 11 and a half and 21 TFLs last season. He was third in sacks and second in TFLs among D tackles. So part of it's always timing too. When you have your best season at the time when you're coming up on a payday, usually good things happen for you. And for Washington, you have to hold on to anything resembling a good thing in your organization because you're mostly full of bad things.
True, especially on defense. But yeah, at the age of 25, this is a pretty safe bet.
Yep, and him and Jonathan Allen, like they've essentially gone with the strategy that used to be, which is just draft Alabama players and prosper. The strategy has now since shifted to just draft Georgia defensive players and prosper. Right. Either way, usually a pretty good plan. Go for some blue chippers who play that position at that particular tool, and shit's usually going to end up working out pretty well here. So Montez Sweat is going to be a free agent after this season. The team is still not yet decided to pick up the fifth-year option on Chase Young also, so a little bit behind on the clock, but some decisions to be made on a D-line that when it first got put together, once Chase Young got drafted, we were all losing our shit because they had like 5 first-rounders on one D-line. It's hardly ever had all of them on the field at once to kind of see that to fruition, but outside of when Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen fought with themselves, it's usually worked out pretty good for the Commanders. Brandon, let's get to that. This one is a really interesting kind of new developing story surrounding the Cincinnati Bengals. So on Saturday night, the NFLPA in a tweet communicated with the players in the NFL that the Bengals are part of a group seeking to introduce legislation that would limit professional athletes who have been under contract for 5 or more years from obtaining permanent partial disability compensation. The PA said it believes the new legislation will require those athletes to pay for their own medical care at billed amounts instead of at any reduced rates available under Ohio's workman's comp laws. Basically, trying to change workman's comp laws that would affect professional athletes in the state. Now, this is apparently being done as a preemptive measure ahead of any proposed legislations that could be filed during the current session for the Ohio General Assembly. For the Bengals, they are also self-insured. They don't draw from workers' comp from the state, but should the state laws be altered, it could also limit the amount that the team is liable to have to distribute in cases of permanent partial disability to deal with in workplace injuries. And Brandon, you and I both have former teammates that have gone through the process of filing for permanent partial disability, filing for workman's comp after it's done. It's a bitch of a process. Like, it is an arduous process to go through. The NFL's got an independent board that looks at and verifies all this stuff and works on a point scale. You got to work hard to earn the money that you're going to get after your career for injuries usually sustained there. And so I saw a lot of people, I think a lot of them, especially Cincinnati Bengals fans, who saw the timing of this coming up before NFL free agency and looked at this as something that was targeting them. And I would say this. One, that would have to be your only defense if you were someone there. If you believe that the NFLPA specifically has it out for the Cincinnati Bengals, which I don't agree with. Because what I do know is generally when it comes to these things, and I can speak from some modicum of personal experience, public shame is a great deterrent for things like this. So when I was in New Orleans in 2014 in the offseason program there was a bill that had been introduced to legislation at the time that the Benson family, who owns the Saints and the Pelicans, had been supporting that would change how workman's comp was handled in that state. At the time, it would calculate workman's comp for pro athletes based on recent earnings, not future earnings. Basically, if you get hurt in the offseason when you're paid comparatively less, they wanted to pay you workman's comp based off the few $1,000s you got then, not the hundreds of thousands or potentially millions of dollars that you earn during the fall. NFL players are only paid during the season. Your paychecks come during those 18 weeks of the year. Obviously, that legislation was not something that people were super excited about. And so the PA sent about 50 of us on a bus down to the New Orleans state capitol in Baton Rouge. And we went there as the bill was going to the Senate. And at the Louisiana State Capitol, we went out there, showed up with, 50 people, a show of force. Drew Brees went out and spoke on the floor in front of the Senate, and the bill died and never saw the light of day again. Wow. I say all that to bring up is that's what it took. Because most of these politicians that are locally elected or have to live with their constituency around there do not want to be seen on the opposite side of the home team. And so I'd imagine this is something that we're going to see potentially or hear potentially from Joe Burrow about. It's why the PA, I think, decided to use social media in this time to create this kind of buzz around this. Because if there's even an inkling that this is going down, public shame is a powerful deterrent for this. I would just say this too, because I've seen some of the people that are detractors, and I don't want to talk down to anybody, but I would just always ask and remind people in these situations. This is what we talked about in the wake of what went on. Now, the Bengals, by the way, were also reached out to by ESPN and others to comment. And so far, about 24 hours into that, there had not been a statement denying this from the Bengals organization. Nothing that I had seen there. And so again, I'd ask in this situation, in this particular league, where more often than not, we've seen the NFL and teams on the wrong side of history when it comes to how they deal with players' bodies. One, why you would give the benefit of the doubt, and two, why you would side with management over labor. This is not a place where this affects the salary cap or anything meaningful. This would just be you pocket watching billionaires to try and help them out in a way that, as a base level, because we haven't heard from the Bengals and we don't know the full scale of this. But again, looking at all of the motivating factors in this, why would the NFLPA just randomly come out with this? Again, if you believe that they have specifically targeted the Bengals to try and affect them in free agency, I can't help you because I do not believe that that is a conspiracy that warrants merit. But on the other side, it would be because they think something's coming down the pipeline, and because usually for the NFLPA, when it comes to issues with the league, suing or making it out in the court of public opinion are the only ways that they can go with all this. And I would just ask all of those people that felt like thinking and praying when everything happened with Damar Hamlin, by making a stink about this, you can actually support players' well-being off the field after their careers are over. The things that you purport to care about when shit goes wrong and you're forced to stare in the eye, the violent shit that happens all the time that usually just the families of players have to see when they're done with their career. So spare me the thoughts and prayers, and instead put your hand in the pile and raise a little bit of stink when this stuff comes up in public so that these players can get some of the money that they're owed for the things that they do on the field.
Yeah, I think that's my issue with it though, Mike, is that I push come to shove, we'll see how many people actually don't care about the players getting exactly that.
Oh, I know. Most people don't. I've reconciled with that truth a long time ago. I'm just saying it's another spot where the light gets shined on that. And you can choose to be on the right side of history, or you can choose to support management. That can be you. Again, we'll wait and see when everything comes out. We'll wait and hear if we hear from the Bengals at all on this, or we'll wait to see if this thing never sees the light of day. Either way, fascinated. Keep an eye on this. Brandon, let's get to the third, though. We had the Oscars last night, and I didn't see hardly any of the movies that were up for many of the awards this year. I thought Top Gun kicked whole heaping helpings full of ass this last year. I thought Black Panther, Wakanda Forever did a really good job tying up some very painful parts of that franchise, obviously, with the loss of Chadwick Boseman and the thing that cast had to reckon with. But for the rest of it, as far as the big awards here, Everything Everywhere All at Once did what was expected. It won Best Picture. Michelle Yeoh won Best Actress. Best Actor went to Brendan Fraser for The Whale. Nice to see the Mummy getting some love there. Daniel Kwan and Daniel Shiner won for Best Director in Everything Everywhere All at Once. Best Editing went to Paul Rogers, Everything Everywhere All at Once. So that one did a lot. I saw for some of the other awards like Score, All Quiet on the Western Front did a lot of good work in there. Costume Design went to Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Cinematography, All Quiet on the Western Front. Visual Effects went to Avatar, The Way of Water, which always felt like the award it was destined to win. Will still not make me go see that movie.
No, not at all. But I am happy that Everything Everywhere All at Once is winning so much and getting so much acclaim, because it was one of the best movies I've seen, especially in a time where multiverse was kind of getting just driven to the ground. To see an original an original movie telling an original story featuring really minorities that we don't get a chance to see on the big screen frequently. It's good to see win all the awards.
No, it's one of those movies I'm going to see now. My proud tradition in recent years of watching the Oscar movies after the Oscars happen, once I see which ones got the most love. It also reminds me that we're a year removed from the slap. Like, it's crazy to think it was that long ago and also that recent already.
Yes, but as we've talked about off air, Chris Rock just put a special out specifically about the slap, as well as Marlon Wayans in a very weird, awkward way. So it feels like it feels like the anniversary because there's things littered around the fact that it's the anniversary. Like Jimmy Kimmel was the host, and I feel like they went with Jimmy Kimmel because it was a safe bet to, get away from the bad taste that was left in everyone's mouth. Oh, look at that.
They still mentioned it. Jimmy Kimmel made jokes about it, and it's one of those things that everyone needs to be careful not to make that moment their personality. It was one really entertaining night on the internet. There's a bunch of very real things and tentacles that came off of that, all of which led us to a Chris Rock stand-up special that I can only get through about 20 minutes of, because boy, was it just... I didn't even get to the part where he talked about the slap because it just was not funny. If people like that, good for them. Just was not funny. So if that's the end of what it produced, then I hope we can leave it there and move on.
It had funny parts, Michael. It had funny parts, but you can clearly see he's still affected by the slap today, a year later.
Yeah, no, that much was clear. The rest of it, not so much. We hope most of this podcast was clear. If it was, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review Gojo wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and a review. And check us out on the DraftKings YouTube channel under the Gojo with Mike Golick Jr. tab. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Boom. Money in the bank.